and let me know when it's done. We are recording. So welcome to this introductory session to Ethical Consumer Week. My name's Anna. I'm a writer, researcher and co-op member at Ethical Consumer, and I'm also part of the team that's helped design and run this week. I'm joined here today by Clare Carlile. Clare, can you just wave and say hello?
Hi everyone.
And Clare's also a writer and researcher and co-op member at Ethical Consumer, and we'll be hearing about the thinking behind the design of the week and why we've chosen the theme that we have. So we'll be hearing from Clare in a minute. And like I said, we are also joined by Jazz. Can you wave again, Jazz? No, I'll wait. There we are, Jazz, who's also at Ethical Consumer and will be helping with tech during this session today. And this will be quite a standard format throughout the week. We're going to have a number of ethical consumer staff in each session who will be hosting, helping with facilitation, or helping with tech. So in a parallel universe, we would normally be getting ready to set up the food and the layout of Amnesty's main hall at their Amnesty headquarters to run our annual Ethical Consumer Conference. This year, obviously, we've been hit by a pandemic. I'm calling from a tier 3 zone in Lancaster, and I'm sure you're all in similar situations wherever you are. And this has forced us and many other organisations and networks to innovate and respond to this current circumstance. And for us in Ethical Consumer, it allowed us the chance to really think through why we run an annual conference and what we want to get out from doing similar events each year. And so at the start of lockdown, we held a number of co-design sessions to just understand and think through how we could run inclusive online events, and just to think through more about the function of events. And some of the stuff that came out of that are things that are quite common sense. Events are so brilliant for bringing us together, for building up connections, and for offering inspiration for the times ahead. And this is why it feels really very important to be holding something like an Ethical Consumer Week as we start to head into a winter where it looks like a lot of us will be quite restricted in our movement over the coming months. So we hope that this week offers lots of inspiration. And it's worth saying that this is all an experiment, and so we ask you to be kind with us and help us with this experiment. We really welcome feedback, so if something's not working for you or you feel things could be done better, please email the conference at ethicalconsumer.org email, and we will take that feedback on board. We have a number of briefing sessions and reflection sessions during the week internally, so we'll try and be reactive to feedback. And the last thing I want to say before I hand over to Clare is the Co-op Bank have had faith enough in us to back our experiment and have sponsored us this year. So I just want to formally thank the Co-op Bank for doing this and giving us the opportunity to bring such a wonderful range of speakers together. So we have over 60 speakers and project members joining us throughout the week, which you'll get to meet and hear from. And we have a guest list of about 500 people. So how many of us are there today? There's about 55 of us have joined us on this Saturday morning, but I hope you get to meet some of the other 500 throughout the week. And I'll be talking more about how we can do this later. In terms of this session, Claire's going to briefly introduce the context to the week and our thinking behind the theme. And then I'm going to go into a bit of guidance on how to get the most out of the week. So it'll be quite presentation heavy during the first half, and then we're going to give an opportunity for meeting each other in the second through a networking activity. So we hope you stay for all of that. So I'm going to stop wittering now and I'm going to hand over to Clare.
Hi, let me just get my screen ready to share because I have a quick presentation to show to you. As Anna said, thanks for joining us and welcome. Can I just check, Anna, is my screen share working?
Yeah.
Great. Cool. So I'm just going to say briefly kind of what our thinking was behind why we chose to focus on building more resilient communities in the face of crisis as our theme for the week. So I guess the first thing to say is that crisis really is the obvious theme in 2020 for a conference. You know, as we sit here, as we all know, we're seeing a global pandemic and the enormous human cost of this. We're seeing a crisis of police violence against Black and ethnic minorities in the United States, which I think has forced many of us to confront an ongoing crisis of racism around the world. We're seeing the spiraling effects of climate crisis and the, in many ways, devastating need to delay COP26. Although these events have been an enormous shock for us, what I actually want to suggest first of all is that in many ways they're not the exception. You know, this year has also seen revelations that coronaviruses are very, very closely connected to our destruction of the environment. For most of us, it will be no surprise that the burden of the pandemic is falling on the poorest in society. Racism is a crisis that has been ongoing for, you know, centuries. And the climate crisis has been spiraling for decades. So in many ways, these crises are the continuation and certainly the product of the norm. But what we also want to suggest that about being in a year of crisis is that in providing this kind of shock to our system, it also gives us a moment for pause and reflection. So an opportunity to look at what has worked for us and what has not. You know, how have we ended up in this situation? What has gone so drastically wrong, but also what has gone right? You know, how are the many, many amazing pockets of resistance and change seeking to kind of shift this norm to look at what a different future might look like? In April, right at the start of the pandemic, War on Want wrote about it. It has ripped up the rule book. It must be a catalyst for systemic change. I think on this note, over the last few months, many of us have been discussing and sharing lessons from the pandemic, of which clearly, you know, there are a whole host. Undoubtedly, there have been enormous learnings for the ethical consumption world too. So just to share a few of the ones ethical consumer that we've kind of been discussing in the run up to this event. I think we've seen firsthand what unjust trade relations actually mean. In April, it was already being predicted that as many as 60 million low-paid and mainly female workers would lose their jobs in the garment industry, as brands in the UK and other countries actually cancelled their orders so that they could transfer the financial burden of the crisis further down their supply chains. I think we've seen the vital role of workers who are so often undervalued and underpaid. I think we've seen the importance of corporations paying their tax fairly to rebuild our public finances at a time when we're really relying on them. You know, companies like Amazon continue to rake in huge, huge profits, but they're still refusing to pay their fair share for incredibly vital public services. But I think we've also seen things like some of the potential of the sharing economy, where things are accessed, not owned, through the growth of things like local community support groups, where, I don't know, on my road anyway, there's been sharing of everything from wheelbarrows and drills to dal and hummus. I think we've seen the value of buying local, including locally grown produce. And I think we've seen the role that that plays in building resilient communities and building community connection. I think we've actually also seen the possibility of a greener world when we do, if we do, reduce our consumption. With Earth Overshoot Day, for anyone who doesn't know what that is the day of the year when, as the UK, we overstep our sustainable resource consumption. That day fell on August 22nd this year, which again, still is not great, but it's actually 3 weeks later than on the previous year. So you can see in the graph on the screen that the green bar has got longer again for the first time in a very, very long time. I think we've seen that when consumption isn't the only option, life continues and in some cases does thrive. So what we hope this week will be about is kind of talking through, discussing these learnings, but also broadening them away from just the pandemic, also saying what have we learned from the climate crisis, what have we learned from the many other interlinked issues we currently face, but also discussing how we can turn these learnings into considered action. I was recently reading an interview that my colleague Sophie did with Mike Berners-Lee, and he had this amazing quote in it, which I wanted to share with you. So he said, "We need a big systemic change in the way that humans carry themselves on the planet. All parts of the puzzle need to move at once. When you're trying to change a system like that, if you change little bits, you find it really hard work and can feel for ages like you're not getting anywhere. That's where we are at the moment. But it's a question of building up the conditions under which that big tipping point of change can become possible. It may be that if we all push hard right now, we might get to see the big systemic change that we really, really need." We've designed the week with this kind of idea in mind. So when we were thinking it through, we wanted to move from setting the context to discussing the underlying problems, the underlying issues behind the crises we face, to actually radically reimagining the future based on what we've learned, and finally finding the considered actions we can take to move us forwards. Because these crises are in many ways not the exception, there are so many communities we can look to who have already spent years, have already have this enormous experience when it comes to building resilience and trying to redefine the norm. So this photo is of SOCSAC Workers Union in southern Spain, where fruit and vegetable workers, many of whom are undocumented migrants, are being denied very, very basic rights by their employers and governments, and have been forced to live in shanty towns. It was these workers through unions and through grassroots workers-led organisations that were actually at the forefront of providing vital supplies during the pandemic. And they've been pushing for change within this region, within Almeria, for decades. This is a photo of a very different community. This cow spent a winter with a bison herd in Poland a couple of years ago after escaped its farm and the slaughterhouse where it was headed to spend a winter eating wild food in the high mountains. So what can we learn from this community? This is a photo of May Project Gardens, an amazing community permaculture garden in Morden, that supports local community members, including young people of colour and unaccompanied refugee minors. And it says of its work, "From our community permaculture garden, we work with people to grow food, run creative workshops, and provide a space for those who face hardship to find comfort, solace, and emotional support." And there in the picture, you can see their really beautiful slogan, which is "Come we grow." These are communities that show the potential for change from the bottom up and suggest that we really could have a very radically different future. When Anna and I were discussing this kind of introductory session and discussing all the amazing communities that are going to be speaking throughout the week, Anna actually sent me a really, really beautiful quote from Arundhati Roy, which is, "Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing." I think one of the reasons that for me, going back to May Project Gardens, the reason that their slogan, "Come we grow," really, really chimes with me is because it's got that amazing kind of suggestion of the synergy between healthy systems of consumption and production and the growth of healthy people and communities. You know, from improving workers' rights conditions in southern Spain to providing these alternative forms of growing and food production in South London. The examples that we're going to hear from this week show that communities can drive the move towards more ethical forms of production and consumption, and also that ethical consumption and production can be really central to community health. When I was preparing this introduction, I actually looked up the dictionary definition of community and discovered that it's quite vague, so nice and open for our own discussion and interpretation throughout the week. A body of people or things viewed collectively. I think as we move through the week, I'm sure many different definitions and understandings of community will emerge. But first, I want to suggest one thing from our perspective as the ethical consumer. We feel that, you know, if we've learned anything from the climate crisis, it's that our communities go way beyond just people or things. The survival of the human and other animal life on this planet literally relies on us seeing that interconnection of our populations with the natural world, realizing that we rely on everything from the forests that provide us with oxygen to the worms that are breaking down our waste and offering the opportunity for new forms of life. This is a strong belief we hold at Ethical Consumer and why we view companies across all of our categories all the time. So we think that it's vital when we're talking about communities, about things viewed collectively, that it has to include this idea of non-human animals and the ecosystems around us as well. So with this in mind, we would like to use the week to ask you, what role can ethical consumption and production play in ensuring that our communities are healthy, resilient, adaptive, and that they can meet the needs of healthy people and other animals and the planet? I will pass back to Anna to talk to you about making the most of this week.
Yeah, okay. Are there any questions that we've had so far about what Claire's just shared or presented? No, I don't see any in the chat. So great, I'll continue then. So I'm going to present again. I want you to see something other than my face. So I will share my screen now. Oh, is that showing the right screen, Claire? All right, great, perfect. So as I mentioned at the beginning, shifting from an in-person event where you can have cups of tea, you can hug, you can chat, you can go on a walk and escape the monotony of being inside, it offers a very different space for connection and inspiration and a space for discussing. And with this shift to an online conference, we wanted to offer a few tips for how you can still get some of those beautiful qualities of an in-person event from this online format. So by no means follow everything I'm about to say. Please critique it, adapt it, make it work for you. But this is just some of the things that we felt and have learned from our own experience in attending events during this lockdown. Right, I need it to change slide. There we are. So first of all, this is maybe a bit obvious, but attend sessions, like attending them live is really useful because you can ask questions in person. If there's something that's said that you really disagree with, it offers an opportunity to really air that view and help us all in learning from each other. So please do attend sessions if you can. If you can't, we are going to put a lot of effort into making recordings available shortly after the sessions. So we aim for most to go up on the day, or at least the day after sessions being held, to allow for people who work to catch up, and also those who are on half term to have time with their family.
Yeah, I said they were recording them so people can catch.
Grace, please could you mute yourself? Or Jazz, can you help there? Thank you. Yeah, so we will make session recordings available so that you can catch up. You'll be able to find these in the ticket holders area of the website, and I'll show you a bit more about that in a minute. And the other thing that we're offering during the week are these open cafe sessions. So they don't have a set theme, and they're all hosted by Ethical Consumer. So we have one on Monday lunchtime, Wednesday lunchtime, and Friday lunchtime. And the idea of these spaces is really to allow you to bring your questions, comments, and perhaps you feel we've completely got the whole design of this week wrong, or have missed something completely, and you feel that we need to create space for discussing something that has been omitted. So please make the most of those open cafe sessions. And yeah, to access all of these, to attend sessions like the one you're attending now, to catch up on recordings, and to join the open cafe sessions, you really need to get your head around the back end of the ticket holders area. I'm sure you've all found that because you're here today, but if you go on the Ethical Consumer Week website and click in ticket holders area, you'll be asked to enter a password that then gives you access to the area of the website that looks very much similar to the program, the front end, but it has a few extra functions available. So you can join events. So I'll show you the image here. You can join events. When we put recordings up, we will essentially replace that join event button on the bottom with a watch now button as we upload recordings. So please watch out for that. And the other quirk of the setup is that the button is underneath a very long spiel of words. So please keep scrolling down to the bottom to find it. It is there. It just might take a little bit of time to find. The next tip or guidance is discuss, like, anything that comes up. Share it with friends, with family, with colleagues. Perhaps you're one of the local discussion groups here today. Maybe you're hosting one, or maybe you want to start one. Maybe it's an informal local discussion group. Maybe it's just your house getting together over dinner to chat through what you've watched, listened to, questions that have arisen for you. But please discuss what you hear and ideas that come out with others. This is how we share and learn and grow. You can do this in person. You can also do this on social media. We have a hashtag for the week, EC Week 2020. So please help in spreading the discussion and the questions that arise throughout the week online. We've also created a community forum for the week. Again, this is accessed via the ticket holders area. So I've just copied and pasted in this slide the header of that ticket holders area, and you'll see that there's a link to community forum. So please go on there and you'll see something that looks a little like this. So during the week, Ruth Strange from Ethical Consumer will be moderating this. And she's essentially created areas to discuss the themes and questions that come out from each session. There's also a section to introduce yourselves and your work, and it offers an opportunity to find out who's attending the conference and ask them questions. So please go and have a look at that community forum. I guess from having a go at it myself, the key thing to be aware of is the news and the topics area. So that's, if you click on news in the forum, that's where you'll get this display of all the sessions throughout the week. So just go and have a look and experiment. And if you have any problems using that, please just email conference@ethicalconsumer.org and we'll try and either solve any problems or write clearer guidance on how to use it. Another tool that we have found useful, both me personally and other people that I work with, is a reflective journal. And all this is get a notebook, paper, pad. After each session, just think through what you've learned and then think about, why is that important? So what's important about what you have learned? Sorry, I see there's someone coming in the meeting room. And then come back to your reflections a few days later and just see if your thoughts have changed again. Reflective journals are a really great tool for helping you dig a little deeper into the facts and the content, to think what actually underlies all that stuff. Are there any patterns that emerge throughout the week? Yeah, they're really useful for helping you just dig a little bit deeper. Next slide. And as part of a reflective journal or separately, you can refer back to some key questions. So Claire's mentioned some of the ones that we'll be thinking about during the week, we being ethical consumer staff. But perhaps you would like to jot some of these down and keep referring back to them at the end of each day to see how your understanding changes, whether you've had any inspirations or ideas. And I'll just read out these questions to help them sink in a little bit more. So, what do resilient communities look and feel like? What role can I or our organisation play in building more resilient communities? What role do ethical consumers, producers and traders have in building more resilient communities? And I'm sure that you have lots more key questions that you would like to explore, and please feel free to share them in the chats, and perhaps we can share them in the forums as well to help others think back and reflect on some key questions during the week. And lastly, and this is where this segues beautifully into a breakout group activity in a minute, but setting intentions can't be understated. Coming into an event and being clear on why you've attended and what you really hope to get out can really help in bringing out the most for each of us. And I remember last year at our annual conference, Philippa Mintel did this very spontaneously on the spot, and everyone after was asking for her list of her own intentions. And so I'm going to share mine for the week. They're by no means as good as Philippa's. And you can't even see them. So there you go. So have fun and learn something new, particularly as someone who's helping host and organize a lot of sessions. I have to maintain that strongly in me. Otherwise I'll get exhausted and never want to help run one of these again. Actively listen. And this for me is really linked to learning something new. So I really catch myself always thinking that I know the answer to this, and of course we don't. And so coming into an event being very open-minded and really listening to what is said and seeing how that challenges our own views and forces us to evolve and adapt our own understanding. Yeah, so I come with an intention to actively listen throughout all the sessions. And I hope to build and strengthen connections I've already made and collaborations. And that's already well underway with some of the people that have come together to run some of the sessions this week. And I also hope to take away at least one clear action to implement in my own life, perhaps in my house and community, but also in our workplace at Ethical Consumer. So I hope to take away an action that will affect how we do things as well and how we work and roll. And this is where I want to leave us. What are your intentions for the week ahead? And I am going to stop sharing. And I am going to put that question in the chat. And then I'm going to ask Jazz, have there been any questions shared so far that we need to go through before we go into the networking activity?
No questions so far by the looks of it.
None, okay. Oh, brilliant. That means we have plenty of time for this. So we are going to invite you to introduce yourselves and share your own intentions for the week with people here. And we're going to do this with almost like a speed dating type approach. So we're going to create breakout rooms with 3 of you in each room. We're going to leave you in the breakout room for up to 5 minutes, and then you're going to be invited, if it all works well, to attend another room where you'll meet another couple of people, and then we'll do that again and again until either people drop out or people get bored or we run out of time. But we aim to come together a few minutes before 11 to just share some of the stuff that might have come up from those intros. So, Jazz, are you ready? Yeah, great. So you're going to get an invite to a room. Please accept that, and please let us know if you have any troubles with any of the technology, and we'll see you in 20 minutes or so. Enjoy. Anyone?
I've spotted one hand from Graham.
Graham, please unmute yourself. Hello.
We're saying what a good thing it is not having to go to London for this conference, and how we hope that our intention next year is that we can have it live streamed again.
Okay, great.
I concur.
That's good to hear. And yeah, it's interesting that in that venue we can only fit about 200 in, but this year we hopefully will be able to reach or bring 500 people together or more. So there seems to be lots of benefits from this online format. Would anyone else like to share their intention? I'm seeing a plane in Teresa's video, which is good.
Yeah, that's my son, my little mouse. My intention is a usable takeaway, something I can actually action. I've been feeling a bit impotent with lockdown, and it would be nice to have something to do to progress everything, everywhere.
That's great. Thank you for that. Any other intentions that people would like to share?
Yeah, would Pam like to speak? I think Pam has something to say.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say I met Victoria in a previous session just now, and I was particularly interested in fashion and being ethical. And she's doing a session from 7 to 8:30 tomorrow, so I highly recommend that everybody goes to that one. Well, I think there are some areas that I'm familiar with, like not driving and cycling and walking everywhere, and being vegan, those kind of things, but I want to learn more about the things I'm maybe not so aware of, and fashion was top of my list.
Yeah, the Zoom universe is weird. I got put with Susie as well, who I haven't seen since our conference last year, and it was nice to be able to talk to Susie. And just to build on this like lockdown and hope idea, Susie mentioned Rob Hopkins' podcast series that he's been doing throughout lockdown around the what if. And Susie, do you want to talk about that? Not putting you on the spot, and what you think about that series.
Hi everyone. Yeah, it's just really super positive and really enjoyable. So he has there's a what if question. So what it's all about imagining the future that we could make now, and he has incredible guests. And as my daughter said, she's in her mid-20s, he's not an annoying podcast host, so there's no waffle, it's not all that chatter and everything. It's just really inspiring. So do tune into it. So it's on different platforms. You can be a Patreon, or it is available on SoundCloud as well.
Thank you for that. We'll share that in the forum because it sounds like a really inspiring series. Yeah, and Rob has asked for the podcast name, so if you could put that in the chat, Susie, that would be great. Would anyone else like to share their intention for the week?
There are a few in the chat that I could read out if
that
you'd
sounds
like
good.
to hear those. So Sean has said that he's going to take the time this week to review businesses' ethical policy, which has somewhat surprisingly proved really popular with clients and freelance consultants with whom he works. Another person has said, in both groups, we were interested in building connections and communities so we can lean back harder against the entrenched interests of those currently in a position of power who benefit from the existing structures. and another one for most of us to be energized and connected with like-minded people. So lots there about community and connection.
Great. And Dennis, you've raised your hand. Where are you?
Yes, hello. So it's really exciting that this conference has a lot of different subjects. So I find that very exciting. So my intention is I'm looking forward to listen about things that I never thought about before. And I'm looking forward to the gardener's time, ethical gardener's time tomorrow.
Yeah, the ethical gardener's question time. Thank you, Dennis. Any other intentions? I'm getting distracted by the mouse. It's great. I think we should all dress up. Any more? No? Okay, so I'll start to close this session down then. So we have a packed schedule over the next 7 days. You can look through that in the ticket holders area of the website. But for today, we will be joining Zatoun and Tazir and Khada in Palestine for the olive harvest at 12. We then got a session looking at resisting corporate power later this afternoon, and this evening we have a session with ECCR on putting your money where your values are. You can read, like I said, you can find out about all the details of the program on the website, so please go and have a proper look through all of that information. Yeah. And what else do I need to say? Oh yes, so like I mentioned at the start, we have these open cafe sessions throughout the week, which we invite you to come and bring your questions and concerns or topics to. But also next Friday from 4 to 5:30, Clare and I will be hosting a closing session where we try to draw out some of the themes from the week and reflect back on it and pull out some actions to take forward. So it would be great to see many of you there. So that's Friday at 4 to 5:30, and it's called Building Resilient Communities. And it's really the session to pull out learnings and next steps from the week. What else? Do I need to say anything else, Claire?
No, I think that sounds good.
Okay, so we'll give you 2 minutes free time to make it up as you wish, and we look forward to seeing you later today and throughout the week. So thank you. And I'd like to invite you all to unmute and say goodbye as you disappear. So goodbye.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm going. I just want to see everyone.
Everyone's saying bye-bye. You said
Bye.
Bye.